Fiji. We have one in Mauritius, one in Maldives, one in Guam, and of course the ones in Hawaii. And not sucky places to visit. A couple of properties in Thailand, a nice Fiji. We have one in Mauritius, one in Maldives, one in Guam, and of course the ones in Hawaii. And not sucky places to visit. A couple of properties in Thailand, a nice Fiji. We have one in Mauritius, one in Maldives, one in Guam, and of course the ones in Hawaii. And not sucky places to visit. A couple of properties in Thailand, a nice Fiji. We have one in Mauritius, one in Maldives, one in Guam, and of course the ones in Hawaii. And not sucky places to visit. A couple of properties in Thailand, a nice Fiji. We have one in Mauritius, one in Maldives, one in Guam, and of course the ones in Hawaii. And not sucky places to visit. A couple of properties in Thailand, a nice Fiji. We have one in Mauritius, one in Maldives, one in Guam, and of course the ones in Hawaii. And not sucky places to visit. A couple of properties in Thailand, a nice Fiji. We have one in Mauritius, one in Maldives, one in Guam, and of course the ones in Hawaii. And not sucky places to visit. A couple of properties in Thailand, a nice Fiji. We have one in Mauritius, one in Maldives, one in Guam, and of course the ones in Hawaii. And not sucky places to visit. A couple of properties in Thailand, a nice Fiji. We have one in Mauritius, one in Maldives, one in Guam, and of course the ones in Hawaii. And not sucky places to visit. A couple of properties in Thailand, a nice Fiji. We have one in Mauritius, one in Maldives, one in Guam, and of course the ones in Hawaii. And not sucky places to visit. A couple of properties in Thailand, a nice Fiji. We have one in Mauritius, one in Maldives, one in Guam, and of course the ones in Hawaii. And not sucky places to visit. A couple of properties in Thailand, a nice Fiji. We have one in Mauritius, one in Maldives, one in Guam, and of course the ones in Hawaii. And not sucky places to visit. A couple of properties in Thailand, a nice Fiji. We have one in Mauritius, one in Maldives, one in Guam, and of course the ones in Hawaii. And not sucky places to visit. A couple of properties in Thailand, a nice Fiji. We have one in Mauritius, one in Maldives, one in Guam, and of course the ones in Hawaii. And not sucky places to visit. A couple of properties in Thailand, a nice Fiji. We have one in Mauritius, one in Maldives, one in Guam, and of course the ones in Hawaii. And not sucky places to visit. A couple of properties in Thailand, a nice Fiji. We have one in Mauritius, one in Maldives, one in Guam, and of course the ones in Hawaii. And not sucky places to visit. A couple of properties in Thailand, a nice Fiji. We have one in Mauritius, one in Maldives, one in Guam, and of course the ones in Hawaii. And not sucky places to visit. A couple of properties in Thailand, it's been interesting though over the years. You've seen more and more um, people move towards FIT bookings, so it's direct bookings as opposed to booking through the traditional wholesale agents. I mean, when I was first involved in this market, the majority of bookings were coming in as packages, and now that has changed, especially to the island of Oahu, which is the engine that drives Hawaii. Is that you're seeing more people who are booking their air separately and their hotel, which is a great opportunity for us to tap into the direct market. And I think we see actually pretty good numbers in that regard. And in fact, I think you would probably, although some of our destinations you can drive to, there is a land bridge to Phuket properties from the main island, from the main heart of Thailand. And Mauritius is a fairly big city, or is close to a fairly big city. Most of our markets are tourists flying in, so that is definitely something that we're challenged with in the digital space, especially when you're looking at direct marketing. We're not doing, we don't have package product, other than the potential to work with some of the big guys in white labeling their product, but it's still really not a direct booking. Other than that, I think our challenges are the same. The cost of acquisition, getting people at least on the first try to come through us rather than the OTAs. Just the pure cost of doing our search marketing, our display marketing, and just trying to get a little bit of space in the consumer decision-making process early on outside of the OTAs.
It brings up, just to continue that thought process for a second, because flat out, you're one person in the world that if I ever were to ask how to handle wholesalers, consortia, tour operators, so that you're the one person I can only, to me, is you deal with it in such a density level, such a daily level, that you're an authority over most people's perspective is what they think it is. And to me, I had a client that was in Hawaii for briefly a client that was in Hawaii, and it was so hard because the destination is the same. There's almost a mirror capacity of types of hotels with some slight differentiation. Do you find yourself that you have to market higher in, I hate saying the funnel, but higher in the aspirational mode, the discovery mode, because you have to kind of get in front of people and make them start relating to their Hawaiian experience with your product first before they start realizing there's so many variations that are similar or maybe a different opportunity? I mean, how do you adjust your marketing strategy to compensate for the fact that you are in the same location as your competitors, you are offering relatively the same product in some circumstances? How do you get yourself separated from the pack, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean that's a tough question. I mean, ideally, I'd love to play higher in the funnel, but budgets don't allow to play too high in the funnel because your budget will be depleted very quickly if you're trying to play up there. So, we tend to play further down in the funnel. I think our brand, especially, one of the great things about the internet, I always say, although I think it's shifted a bit over the past probably 5 years or so, the internet was a great equalizer for small companies like us. We could get out there and we can be there with the big boys just as easily by having, a clever SEO strategy and some guerrilla marketing, and we could be out there in front with them. And to some extent, that's still there. I think we do differentiate ourselves. I think the service and the product, the product is the product. I mean, it's not. I think our product is great, but everybody has a room with a bed in it. But a big differentiator for us is our service, the family-run company, and the way we treat our guests. And we have a history of it. We have a whole program of engaging our hosts and getting us to support the Hawaiian culture and the culture of the company. And I think these things come out in things like TripAdvisor. As much as I have a love-hate relationship with them, the review aspect of TripAdvisor is absolutely awesome. If you could ever find them through all their advertising, that helps us. And I know the billboard effect has been poo-pooed a little bit over the past few years, but that also helps us. Now that we're in a list with the Sheratons and the Marriotts, and you see our rigger there, it sort of piques people's interest. And I also think the movement, that Airbnb captured a bit through their marketing genius, not through the reality of their product, but through their marketing genius. What they captured was the fact that people want these local experiences. And I think that's something that we offer and we've been doing for a long time. And I think that comes out and helps us sort of rise above the rest. But, we do a little bit of high funnel advertising, or maybe things where we can partner with people to amplify our voice. So if an airline is doing something, or we just actually, we're in the Disney movie Moana. I think Edward might be young kids. The rest of us are a little bit older. We might not have.
It's actually one of the better recent Disney movies.
So we got it. We got some PR into that as well, and we're in their the DVD jacket and some other things that are coming out. So when we can do things that will amplify our message beyond, the few dollars we can throw it at, we'll certainly do that. And my team is always working hard and trying to figure out how we can partner with people to amplify beyond just going out and buying display, or getting a travel weekly, a travel and leisure spread or something like that.
Dan, just so you know, because I'm playing moderator for others. You might see me typing. It's not out of disrespect of not paying attention to you. I'm typing notes and commenting to people so that I don't distract from what you're talking about. So I apologize if it looks like I'm wandering off or something.
He claims that's what he's doing.
I put a Bluetooth in so people don't think I'm crazy just talking to myself. Shut up, let them talk.
So Dan, you were talking about like your unique position on being able to guerrilla market, and obviously in the early days SEO and everything, because you are a heavily branded market, and they have people that aren't necessarily on island marketing their stuff. What have you shifted to now that SEO's kind of been cracked to a certain level and is getting more expensive? Have you guys started looking elsewhere in those types of efforts?
We have, and I hate to say that we haven't found the magic bullet yet. We're playing around with different things. Before I had a policy of not using things like Meta. I'm playing around a little bit, not so much with the CPC Meta, but maybe the CPA models. So we're looking at doing a little bit of that to see what we can do in that area. We are being much more aggressive in our retargeting, as well as looking at better retargeting and personalization. We things like when you're on my site and then magically you see me in your Facebook feed, right? So those sort of things that we're working on in retargeting. We are looking at things and testing products like Sojourn that work more on a CPA model. That allow us, so you put the spend up only when you get the bookings. The big challenge with that is, okay, what's incremental and what are they just taking revenue share for that we would have gotten anyway? So we're just giving up that percentage. So we're it's an interesting time, because I agree SEO is, although my SEO consultant would tell me otherwise. But SEO is not, what it used to be. With mobile, you're not even on the first, scroll yet. You probably have to scroll down a couple of times with your finger before you're there. And I think, even us being this resort destination where you think people want to sit down with their cup of coffee and look at all the beautiful pictures, we're still getting more than 50% of our traffic is coming from mobile devices. So, we're trying everything. So with this amazing panel here, I'm wondering if you've heard of any amazing things that's working for hoteliers.
Well, so because of the type of destination you are, what are you guys doing to romance the sale? Because I think about the family-friendly aspect to your destination and everything, and I think about my own epiphany, being lucky enough to have been in travel before having kids, and then seeing the difference in how I care about travel after kids. One of the things I found that actually amplified how much I got excited about a hotel was just going through and showing the kids what's in it for them. Like, here's what's coming up. And it actually completely changed my perspective on hotel marketing and where I think hotels could strengthen their position. And it's actually a normal sales tactic, which is continuing to sell after the sale. I mean, have you guys looked into that area at all, or thought about that as its own thing? I mean, obviously you do it, anyways. But like, have you actually focused into that place?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. We are just in the process of launching our CRM program that will enable us to more aggressively target people who book, get them excited about the vacation. And one of sort of the tenets that I have with my team and that I'm trying to get people to understand, and especially at the property level, is we're only ever going to get a slice of pie of people on their first booking. Right? They're going to book through wholesalers. They're going to book through OTAs. They're going to book how they're going to book. But we're going to try our darndest to get them to book. But where we're going to have the greatest success is on their second stay. We should be really capturing, in theory, 100% of the share of those people. They should now, after staying in our hotel, because of our great service, because of the fact that we got them so excited before the trip, and got them, remembering it after the trip, with whether it be through email, SMS messaging, Facebook posting, any of those things, that the next time they come and book, they're coming straight to us, and that's what we're trying to drive towards. And our CRM is sort of part of that process, both pre-stay, during stay, and post-stay. We really want to engage those guests. We want them to go in and say, oh, hey, they're posting great stuff on their Facebook page. I'm going to like them. And then when they go home, it's still in their feed and they're still remembering it. We want to do, surprise and delight type of tactics when people are in-house, so that they're posting it as memorable and people are seeing this. So, yeah, absolutely. We want to sort of build that long-term relationship from the point of booking, through to their next stay. So that is definitely a focus for us.
What CRM do you use with your systems? What are you working with? What CRM?
We recently partnered with Global Hotel Alliance as our as a loyalty program. So it's sort of an alliance of like-minded brands. I think if you take a look at their site, gha.com, you'll see it's a lot of hotels like Outrigger. A lot of them are smaller brands that are some of them actually family-owned brands that are in the space, and all individually we couldn't create a loyalty or recognition program of any scale, but this helps us do that. And part of that it comes with some tools that will enable us to do CRM. That being said, that was a budgetary issue, so I'm hoping our friends at KSL will help us make.
For those who are on KSL watching the show today,
even a more robust tool we may be looking at, but the tool that we're looking at putting in place will enable us to do all of this stuff. It may not have all of the bells and whistles. You'd love to see like the little pop-up on the side when someone checks in and says, this guy has a cloud score of 95, be extra nice to him. It may not have that level, but we'll certainly be able to reach out to our customers pre, during, and post-stay, and then be able to slice and dice our database to be able to talk to them, as opposed to talking to a mass blast email kind of thing.
Well, and that's one of the best parts about CRM is, if you actually look at what most email marketers inside this industry, what I think they're getting wrong is they're more concerned about the number of communications versus the actual quality. So understand, if you're having a good conversation and you're giving people something that they want, there's no sensitivity to amount, right? But a lot of hotels, in looking at data, I think have made the mistake of seeing, oh, hey, when we went to 7 or 8 or 9 total communications in a sprint with a specific segment, we got a higher opt-out rate. What they don't realize is it's not the number. It's how many times are you wrong is what actually gets you opt-out. How many times did you give me the wrong message that, that's when you get someone tuning out. So, CRM and talking more and romancing the sale before, and then, leaving on a high point too. I think one of the big mistakes hotels make is the last custom communication that you generally see from a hotel, branded or independent, is a thank you. And, in that thank you is usually 2 things that I just don't think should be in the last communication. One is stay again. I think you can do that later. And then the other is the operational survey. Operational survey shouldn't be the last custom touch you have, because if you think about the psychology of an operational survey, you're taking even the guest who had the happiest stay and you're asking them to think about you in a critical way.
Right.
And if that's the last time you're asking them to think about their trip, that's what resonates. Yeah. Whereas ending on a higher note, is just it makes sense. So having after that email communication, that's still an extension of the original reason for communication, I think is something that not enough hotels do.
And I think
that's a great point. I really like that. Especially about the last thing being potentially a critical statement. Even if they mostly liked it, everybody's going to think about the one or two critical things.
Right.
Here's the thing: the best trips have a low point. The worst trips have a high point.
Yep.
So if the last thing you're focused on is feedback of how we could have done better, then no matter what the type of trip it was, they're focused on the same thing.
And I got to tell you, I don't know whether it's scary for me to think that we think alike, or just I'm damn lucky that I think like you. But the survey system that I set up over at one of my clients after our discussions. Remember that I told you about the preferred guest program that we were trying to tier them up, and I'm going to bring it up with Dan a little bit here too. But one of the key elements I told him was like, do not ask them as they're walking out the door what was wrong. At the end of the day, when they're walking out the door, thank them and give them a reward value proposition of why they want to come back. But don't. And so what we do now is with them, we try to incite them to go over to the business center. We don't even try to make it do any engagement. We say, hey, we'll give you $20 off your room right now. It's worth $20 to us for you to sit down in the business center right now and ask what we call it the long form, because there's more than 10 questions, and they're conditional questions, so you can actually answer up to 15 depending upon how you answer. And it's like, and it's immediate, whether the pillows were stale or whether the bed was a little frumpy. They tell us right there because they're still in a positive mood. And then when we react on it, not only do we do better guest satisfaction immediately, because they may not have mentioned that stuff unless they were given the context to do it, but we also, to your point, are not walking them out the door thinking what was wrong with this place and would I come back again? Because they're not going to...
But I also have a question for you, Lauren. Why does it have to be that many questions?
Oh.
Because here's the thing.
Well, why
aren't you more focused on what do you want to talk to us about?
Early questions like that are done at the front desk 1-to-1. These are incentives to get $20 off. This is the balance between ownership's value proposition and getting data that's useful.
But that's the thing. So useful. So how do they answer the question? Are they answering it with telling you what their thoughts were, or are they answering like a 0 to 5?
Oh no. Thoughts. Most are single statements. There is scale, like know, but and we don't ask will you come back? Those questions are not part of this survey. This is first impression, service at check-in, service with your car, things that are, hey, you're here. Okay. Is it living up to what brought you here? Is really the context of the questions. So that there's a reaffirmation of what brought you here is what you're getting, because if it's not, we're going to fix this right away. And those surveys get looked at as soon as they're churned, so that immediately it's almost a guest service issue, and the data then we can use later to say, look, we're sucking at this car arrival thing between 11 and 12. We're always backed up. Add another person. We just can't do that kind of problem consistent. So that's where that kind of survey comes from, and that's why it's worth the $20 in the owner's eyes that we're walking them to the biz center saying, hey, just sit down for a few minutes, and because we're taking time out of your valuable vacation, so we got to make it worthwhile to them. So, but Dan, we were talking about we talk a lot about loyalty versus reward programs and everything else, and independent hotels have challenges because they don't have the networking to give the value proposition. And the same client that I'm bantering about here on this, we did it where we isolated on the CRM the value proposition of the guest in the sense of their durability of how much business they give us. Now, that may not be applicable to you because not everybody's frequently coming to Hawaii. They're not doing it as a multi-year travel, so this may not be a apples to oranges kind of apples to apples comparison. But we identified who was the value proposition, and we created tiered relationships on offering value propositions around the hotel. To them, so that you had your general guest and you had, in this case for this hotel, guests that stayed at least 4 nights in the past rolling 12 months. And we identified them and gave them a different value proposition of engagement, first choices on some things, discounts in local retails and things like this is you experience the destination better kind of thing. And then we had our higher level, which were people even beyond that. And it gave the front desk a tool to use to engage with the people, and it gave them an immediate gratification relationship. It wasn't, hey, after your third visit, you'll get a bottle of water. It was like, we recognize your value proposition right now, so we want to reward you right now with more things that are value to what you're coming and staying with us for. So I just wanted to throw that in as something. You had asked about what are idea kind of stuff. That was one of the things I want to mention.
And that's absolutely where we want to move. When you look at loyalty, you sort of have the reward aspect and the recognition aspect. We don't think we'll ever play really in that reward aspect. But in the recognition aspect.
It's a chasing tail, yeah.
That's for boxes in random cities, not leisure destinations that people spend years thinking about going to.
Right.
Yeah.
But we are looking at what I guess my CRM guy calls a hidden loyalty program, right? Where we give stuff away and do the things that Lauren's talking about, but it's not published anywhere. You know, it's just we do it for the guest. And the thing is, you know, right, as you guys know, in the loyalty program, only a small percentage of your guests are in that loyalty program. You may actually have loyal guests who are not in that loyalty program. So you still want to recognize them. So, you know, the idea of being, again, from an email perspective, we've been pretty good at dissecting our database, but not from the check-in perspective. And that's what our CRM wants. We want to be able to do. We want to be able to know this is the guy's fourth stay, that there's something that he loves going to Duke's on Sunday. We want to give him a few drinks for that or something.
Well, and that's the thing, like that, you know, really is going to drive more impact for your business than a point scheme. Because everyone, we all know as being in this industry that how the check-in experience goes sets the tone for what they think of the rest of their experience. So if you exceed their expectations at check-in, they're going to look past things that other people may complain about or even they complain about. Just that, like on the other side of it, if you disappoint at check-in, they're going to be hypercritical of everything. And if you look at, you know, I spend a lot of time paying attention to what people say about hotels, and you can actually spot where the problem happens in most of these reviews because it's the thing that gets written about. Like, it's like they build up and then they're like, and on top of that, the check-in took forever. And it's like, okay, so you had a bad check-in experience and you just didn't want to like start with that. But if you think about the human nature of it, it's obvious what you're mad about. So if that's where you're going to be focusing your, hey, wow, this is your 5th time here, and you know, we know the last few times you've loved this, so you know what, here it is on us. We really, really love having you here. That is going to be far more impactful to winning a lifetime customer than points.
Well, and you run the same risk. Go ahead, Robert. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just had a question. So, in terms of cross-selling other islands or destinations, I mean, have you found that the Outrigger guests, do they come back like they always hit? They come back to the Reef every year, every other year. I'm sure there's a segment that's like that where they just hit that. Or do you find that other ones wind up kind of going, hey, they're going to go hit a couple of other islands, Big Island or Maui, that sort of thing. I got to imagine the Thailand, Mauritius, Maldives cross-sell might be a little challenging.
I'll tell you.
Here's your $50 off coupon to go to Maldives.
Yeah, I think you see a lot of. I think in Hawaii you do see a lot of it. But it was funny. I was on a plane a couple of months ago coming from the mainland back to Hawaii, and I was sitting next to a guy. I was like, yeah, I know Outrigger, and I was expecting, here we go again. His family took him to Outrigger Waikiki every year when he was, you hear this so often, right? That's Outrigger Waikiki.
That was me. Not every year.
It's like the one place when you always expect they'll say that, right? And we have an incredible, even without our CRM program, we have an incredible second stay. What's the word I'm looking for? A return visit. Sorry, we have an incredible return visit percentage. It's like up close to 50% of the houses.
That's great.
Returnees, so it's pretty incredible. That would be, other places are not so much like that. But I was sitting next to this guy, and he's like, yeah, and we're headed to Hawaii, and he's like, yeah, I just stayed at one of your properties, and expecting. He's like, yeah, it was in Phuket, and it was beautiful. I was like, that was when I know we sort of made it. We made it outside.
Awesome.
I think when people are coming here, they'll often look at us when they're looking at multi-island. But I think we're starting to get, our aspirational goal is to be the premier beachfront with brand, right? We only have a few dots on the map right now. But the idea being that, we think that's a niche that's not, nobody really owns right now. Of course, all the big boxes have beach hotels, and there are regional players that have things on the beach, but there's very few companies that focus on just sun and sand, and that's sort of our focus and where we want to be. And hopefully over time, they'll have a great experience. And we've actually seen it the other way. They've had a great experience in Thailand, and then they come over to Hawaii to stay at an Outrigger, and you especially see that which is great because you see it's a different customer base, right? You're looking at more of the Asia customer base than you are the North American customer base. I mean, we have lots of Europeans out there, but it's a much obviously longer trip to Hawaii. the Europeans and for a lot of the Asian countries where we have direct flights. So we are starting to see that. It's still, as I say in Hawaii, small kind, but it's that's our vision.
Yeah,
that's great.
Well, and with KSL, seems I don't know personally their strategy, but they seem to have picked up something called Apple Leisure Group, which has things like AM resorts and things like that in it. Which, gosh, those are beachfront properties. Now they're all inclusives, so yeah, different sort of things. So I don't know if maybe from a real estate perspective, they're saying, okay, here we have different products that are beachfront, how you own it. But
I'm salivating over those properties, but I don't know. I don't know nothing. So.
That's right.
Well, it kind of funny.
This is when you see the doors behind Dan open up and a couple guys in sunglasses.
So to do something a little bit different, because usually I miss these when we actually have hoteliers.
We try to make all the good hosts come when Ed's not around.
When I'm not here.
most of them really kind of
they actually state that in their contract.
Ed's not going to be on. All right, I'll be on.
I'll be on.
But Dan, you have two consultants and a tech vendor. You have our time.
Oh.
What would you like to ask us about what you do?
Oh, nice twist.
I already offered my $50 off for the cross-sell to Thailand and the Maldives. I mean, come on.
Is that all you got, Robert? Golly.
Lauren hasn't given you an idea yet.
Point systems. Yeah, big things. Free stays after 100
Okay, we're going to mute Robert now. He's gone off the edge.
Please don't do any of those.
Yeah, don't do any of those.
I'm trying to think where we have the biggest challenges. I mean, as a small brand, we do use a lot of third parties to help us. So vendor selection is always a challenge for us. Sifting through the bright, shiny objects and figuring out what it is that we want to test on. I would say the one thing that drives me nuts, and I've asked consultants who don't have the greatest answer, and I ask vendors who often have the greatest answer, but they're not actually accurate, is attribution modeling. Especially, it's always been hard. It's even harder now with mobile. It's hard for me to determine, when it was last click, I was dumb and happy, right? You could easily understand and apply your dollars that way. But when you realize ignorance is not bliss and you're wasting your money, you're trying to figure out what's working and what's not. So that's probably, one of the areas that I'm always looking at and meeting with vendors and different people to figure out what's out there and what's working, and I haven't found anything yet.
Yeah, that's like everyone's trying to figure that out. Listen, things are getting better, but you have to understand not one thing makes the decision.
Right.
Just like, I'll just look at how we look at a sale. When we look at a sale, we try to very early pick up what exposure did you have with us, and when we realize someone either had a lot of exposure with us or not enough exposure with us, we'll actually target those people to get a bit more exposure to fill it in, because it's not one experience that leads to it. It's not the ad you had on my Facebook feed that made me go, yeah, you know what? I'm going to Hawaii and I'm going to stay at an outrigger. It's a culmination of things that leads in the decision path. So attribution, even when you can track it, it's still not giving you the answer, because you need to then understand in the guest journey where you're going to learn more about where you lose people than you are going to learn where you actually got them. What was the moment that you got them? Because there's even time gap from when you've won someone over to when they actually take action. So, I mean, one thing I'd say is if you're chasing the holy grail of knowing what's working, you need to make sure that in that you're realistic that it's not one thing. It's going to be a series of things that push someone to the decision. And if you start tracking that way, you can start putting together clusters of people who have seen this and done this and did this, tended to make this type of decision within the timeline of X. So therefore, we can see that this type of thing mixed with this type of thing leads to this type of behavior. That's what you should be looking for. because even Last Click, like, that was always like kind of funny. Is that's not how decisions are made. You know, I mean, there aren't people who are like, oh, wow, that's a really nice video, I want to go there. Because if you ask, you'll find out, oh no, that person was marketed to by, you know, the Hawaiian Tourism Board 3 years ago and didn't take action. And then somehow something popped up, but the seed was planted long before. And so in attribution modeling, one of the important things is try to capture as much of the lifetime guest journey as you can, and then see what the more aggregate data of that can tell you.
Yeah. So I agree with that. Go ahead, Robert.
I was going to say, you have to somehow identify and tag all those kids who saw Moana. So 25, 30 years when they're going, they don't know why they go to Hawaii. There's something embedded way back there.
We're still getting the
No,
lead
but I think my
That was
advice
my
to my
crowd.
yeah, that's right. No, my advice to a lot of my clients is to treat all these different communications as campaigns. So everything out, every social link, you know, has tags. It's all taken in where you've dropped your pixels everywhere you possibly can, and you collect that overall data. Because again, I think a lot of folks spend a lot of time trying to exactly connect the dots, and it's tough because they're out there on Expedia where it's a black hole, or you know, TripAdvisor or something like that, where you just have no visibility, or the Hawaii CDB site, or a co-op campaign through a tour operator, and it's tough.
Or a random television show about buying real estate in Hawaii. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Those are
these are the things that
Go.
all play a role in it. And so you always have to accept that no matter what you do, that's not the thing that did it. That was present when they were at the point to just act.
See, those are the uncontrollable things. I'll give you a very mechanical answer to augment what Ed had said. Ed, you made an excellent point about seeing the correlations of some things to determine what it is you need to do to spark what the changes that you're wanting. I'll give you an exercise of what I've done with a client and see if this helps answer something that you're asking specifically for, Dan. I go to the GA Analytics and I pull out the top converting time, but before I start this process, the attribution string, before I start this process, I create with the client a defined exact time that they are the most comfortable with knowing exactly who's walking in their door for what reason. So that they have the most intuitive understanding of whatever their client base is for a very narrow time cast. And then I take the attribution string of that very narrow time cast, and to Robert's point, every pixel track that's gone through, I look at the attribution string, and first off, when I first look at the attribution string, is I give it equal weight. You know, you have all the different ways of calculating. I give it all equal weight. Then I look at, because I know what they did on my organic, I know what paid they hit. You know, you know, I'm not talking about. Remember that color code, that little chain that shows you the attribution that GA tells you, and then I just take the top one, which usually has the most few connections because it's the apex of the shorter time span of it. And then I know exactly what my organic was that contributed. I know exactly what my paid was that contributed. I know exactly my social. Then I go in and I see exactly the traffic in the narrow time cast that I have as to when they were engaged with. I also then look to what Ed had pointed out, the extraneous things. What else was going on in market that I knew of, whether it was an ad campaign or whatever. But this is all just putting combustible stuff in a pile. No fire yet. This is just, everything's there for it to have happened. What created the conversion of this? So then I use a trigger. I'll go over and define, after I've decided exactly the stages in my top most converting attribution string, I'll then time decay the ones that I see time gaps for. This was outside the window, this far. Then I take my business cycle and say, my business cycle is a 47-day discovery, 24-day book window, 7-day acquisition, 5-day stay. I put a timeline against that whole attribution string. And my dogs decide the squirrels are attacking.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Your dog's like, yes, he's talking.
He's talking. I'm gonna go talk to those squirrels. Sorry. And I said the squirrels are not attacking. Anyway, once I've done that, I then decide which ones decay on value. This was outside the window of opportunity. Although it contributed, it wasn't the causation. Then I see where the one in the time frame for what was going on, for the demographics that the property says is coming in the door, on that attribution string, in that time window, was the spark. Then I try to recreate that model. Then I say, if that's the case, if that content, whether it was organic, whether it was paid, whether it was social, if that engagement was the spark to the fire, let me recreate. So instead of waiting for the water to come, or the maple to come out of the tree for Canadians, is I would then go over and say, I'm going to tap it. I'm going to actually see if this attribution string, based on what I've defined it for, can actually be recreated by recreating what I consider to be the catalyst to it. And if you can do that, then that creates the model for next time next year. And then you see if you can expand that time frame because of the similarity of demographics or similarity of business cycle or similarity of season. And so then you kind of start very small, very precise, where you can quantify most of the detail to some cause and effect relationship, and then you start expanding that strategy, and then you get as far as you can before it's no longer relevant, and then you start all over again. So I don't know if it was worth your trip to be on a 6:30 call in the morning, but at least it was a most specific answer I can give somebody in a public environment. How's that?
Well, and I'll tag on something else that I've done. If you've gotten all the stuff tagged and you've treated it as campaigns, what I try to find is, say, I don't know, for you guys, honeymoon market or something like that, obviously a strong market. If you can go and figure out, here are these individuals who stayed, they were honeymooners, we know about them, then you go use that information, then go back up through the funnel, right? So you take it from the end result and work backwards, and that hopefully should give you some commonality. So again, if it's a large enough market, if it's a really specific thing, sometimes that can lead people down the wrong path just because, like, coincidentally, 3 people did this. Well, yeah, it was just random versus a trend. But I think especially with you, with a sizable market like that, or if you start, drawing out what's going on for business from Washington State versus California, things like that, West Coast or East Coast markets and things like that, you may be able to start figuring out some of those things from looking at the bottom and going back up.
No, because I had Australian clients for a while, and we did something not exactly, very similar to what I just described. Because Australia, the U.S. market for them is much more aspirational than it is for you. You have a higher frequency pattern than the Australians do for the U.S. market. They have the backpackers, and then you have the empty nesters, and there's a very big gap in between that they want to drink. And I used a software that we've had on here before, Sean Williams, Spring Engage. I don't know whether it's still in existence or not. Great platform. But we isolated off of their websites the non-converters. I mean, high-end, absolutely, they are not coming converters. 20 times to the accommodations page, 30 times to the location interest page. No, offer, no conversion. And we isolated their 2 major feeder markets. We did San Francisco, which were gateway markets. They weren't really feeder markets, they were gateway markets. So LA and San Francisco flight patterns out of there. And we took 100 I ain't converting people. Just 100 of these core, high traffic, great interest, love the site, see all the time, frequency, just don't convert. And we sent them, at the time I was playing with my 360 camera, and I did 5 360 videos in Sydney. And I did it from the aspect of the concierge, showing Taronga Zoo, the bridge, the Opera House, the Westerfields Tower, and in the lobby real quickly. And then we sent them Google Cardboards with the QA, say, hey, play this. We put it in the mail, say, hey, try this. And we sent 100 of them, and we showed them Sydney. This is why you want to come thing. 64 of them booked. Wow. So it's a trigger. Wow. I mean, because we isolated, they know they wanted to go, they just couldn't get that justification. We don't know what that justification was. Financial, time frame, age, we have no idea. But we did know that they wanted it. So we just had to put the spark to the fuel that was sitting there, and that was, when are you going to do it? And that was the verbiage in the videos. When are you going to do this if not now? Why are you not seeing this if not now? Why not enjoy it if it's not now? So
well, and being Australia, you could say, soon we're going to be China, so act now.
Yeah, before the flag changes, I guess, yeah. But
before we're completely bought.
How did they capture the guest information?
That was Spring Engage. Spring Engage was Spring Engage was excellent about that. That was the value proposition of Spring Engage, was it could isolate out. I used it a lot so that we wouldn't re-off. The real value of Spring Engage, and I wish Sean was here to explain himself, because we've had him on the show. He's been with us for a long, many time. What it did was it was a smart slider, and basically how it started. It could isolate out so that we wouldn't offer anybody an offer that they already booked with. That we never put money back on the table. We know when somebody came back that they had already purchased from us. We created conditionals as to how long they stayed on the page, as to whether or not we gave a discounted offer that only they saw, that wouldn't be seen if they had a different offer, if they were in a group block. There was lots of ways to keep them focused. So I'll send you the link to it, Spring Engage. I hope Sean's still there. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but that's what I used him for, was to go over and isolate out the traffic stream to the website, so that we were offering targeted stuff that wasn't putting money on the table, or offering stuff that was more specific to their feeder market. We did that too. Like, hey, you're coming from Philly. We knew rate resistance for the market. We knew time of market that they wanted to travel. We made sure those offers popped up as that, for that, so that they had a higher opportunity to convert. Anyway.
And does the data follow them from mobile to desktop, or
At the time, no. At the time, no. That goes back a few years before you had cross-platform. So no, that wasn't one of those ones where we had that chance. So it was really based strictly on desktop, and we were still able to have that success, knowing that that was the functional engagement we had with them at the time. The market has changed since then for that, and I don't know if Sean's modified his software to do that. But good reason to contact Sean and go, dude, what's going on? So yeah.
Well, and actually, we've got a question in the comments.
Oh, there's
here.
Jeremiah. Okay.
Jeremiah, yep. Says, what are your favorite micro commitments in your guest buying journey?
Okay, I need some help with the smart people on the call. What is meant by micro?
I think it's like a micro, like a decision point where someone's coming in during their guest journey, and at that particular point they turned into some form of conversion, right?
Right.
Either
So an example of this
they registered for newsletter, they
or even think lighter
or anything.
They clicked in to check your rates. That's a micro commitment.
Yeah.
Like you got them to the point where they were like doing a sanity check on can they afford this. So so the most basic and the most obvious are, like Robert said, the booking path and their journey into the booking path, and who completes the booking path, and then newsletter. Do you guys have anything besides that you think plays a role in learning more about the behavior of your different site visitors?
Yeah, I think we spend. I've always had this debate, both in my mind and with people, is the value of all the engaging content that we try to create. Because part of me says, and I understand resort brands are potentially different, but part of me says that people come to look at your room, look at your price, and book. If they want additional information about the destination and cool stuff and that they'll go somewhere else. And the other part of me and many people believe, right, is that you want to engage them on the site, get them excited, give them social links and all that stuff. So it does, well, number one, he asked what the favorite is. My favorite is when they hit buy, okay?
The last one.
The last one.
Which is a large red flashing button on the middle of their homepage.
That glows.
Besides that is when they interact with the site, when they go into our social links, when they go into our stories and our blog, and if you go to our website, you'll see that we try to focus on our hosts and the experience on property, our cultural events and things like that. We spend a lot of time and effort on property. I think it's a no-brainer. It does it, and I think I'm hoping so. It does it online as well. But I wonder, when people are going deeper into it and spending more time actually on the content side, that sort of validates that for me and gets me excited about continuing to do it, because there's so much cool stuff you could do in that space. Like Lauren was talking about, we're thinking about going out and doing this sort of thing where we give the concierge the 360 and let him show his version of Mauritius or Maldives or Oahu. But there's expense involved with that, and do people really want it? So that, to me, that's cool. Like when they go into that area and spend time there, I really like that. It shows that also that to a question that you had earlier, Lauren, it also shows that we're probably catching them higher in the funnel where they're still dreaming about it, as opposed to they're ready to make that buying decision.
Well, and something to think about when you're looking at investing on, do you want your concierge to spend time on that, is go look to see who's already fulfilling that need for your guests. So go do a search on YouTube about you, like what you think people would want to look for videos about you, and then go look, because guests have posted. Yeah. And other people have posted, and go see how many views it's had and if there's any comments on it or anything like that. And that's unpromoted in most cases.
Yep.
So that's probably the best barometer. If all of a sudden you see that there are a lot of videos about us, and they actually have a pretty good viewership, then you're on to, all right, maybe it makes sense for us to throw a little bit of money into doing something where we can pick up the analytics and, and the engagement and promote it.
We do work with a company called Olapic to bring some of that social UGC into our site, and we're just sort of putting our foot in the water on that to see how that works, and we want to blow that out a little bit more. It's funny that you mentioned. I was just you know, everybody in the hotel business is a digital expert. You guys already know that.
Ain't that
from
the
the
truth?
front desk up to the C levels, right? They're all experts because they know how to use Google. Somebody came to me the other day saying, let you know, they're really hot on 360s, which I think, by the way, is a great idea. But although I'm not that sure how well it does. So, you know, my one question I always ask myself is, who's doing it and who's doing it well?
Right.
And you sort of go out and you search around and you see, because especially as a small company, although, you know, part of me wants to be the innovator, but another part of me doesn't want to be the one who blows all the money on and it doesn't work, right? So I'm sort of looking to see what successes are out there. And
especially with KSL, yeah, you don't want to be that guy.
I didn't say that. You said that. But you know, I came across the Best Western videos that they've been doing, the 360. I don't know if you've been to it. I can't remember. I saw their press release, and I went to their site. Couldn't find it anywhere on their site. And then I realized that it was a separate site. It was actually a YouTube channel that they do it on. And they're kind of neat, but as I sort of go into some of their destinations, you know, where I think they would get a lot of visitation, you know, this is like 47 views or something like that. And I think they claim, at least in their press release, that they've done it for all 2,000 properties in North America.
That's the real thing of treating these things as campaigns, where you go, wait, okay, how do they get to it on the site? Where are the traffic points? Yes, they did the press release, but if you go to the website and it's not there, and if they've done it for every hotel, that needs to get embedded in some sort of prominent way on each of those property pages.
Unfortunately,
if they went to that extent.
Unfortunately, a lot of people with shiny object stuff like this, it's like putting a note in a bottle and throwing it in the ocean, thinking that you're going to get it to the recipient on the other side. It's not.
Yeah.
You don't do it with that. You do it with an objectivity in mind of satisfying the content, the person that the content is most interested to. You give it to the person, kind of like going to the example I had. We gave it to people we knew were interested in the content, not just like, hey, look how we did this new cool thing that nobody else has done. Here it is. I want to throw it up, and you got to go find it. It's like, no, you put it into the mainstream of the people that are most interested in the content. So as a part of the program, going back to the conversation of being more direct about attribution and so forth, is you interject the content. I mean, one of the worst things that most hotels do is that they send the same freaking email to the same list over and over and over, and they don't even have the common courtesy to segment them on their duration of stay or their time to stay. That people that stay with you in winter are not the same people who stay with you in July, so why do you talk to them the same? And why do you act like you've never talked? It's like having 41st dates, okay? That you say, it's like you're starting over the conversation every time you're sending them an email as if you don't know who they are. You do know who they are, at least at the very courtesy level of knowing when they stayed with you. So keep the verbiage related to that. So what you're saying about 360s, first off, it's not expensive. You can buy a camera for $399 and give it to whoever you want to put it on a stick and tell them to go walk around with it. That's what we did to that Sydney thing. That's all that was. It was
or Lauren will do it for you, and
yes, yes,
I get to the Maldives.
It'll be a great sacrifice for me to fly to the Maldives, but I would do that for you, Dan. I would. Wow, yes, sacrifice, yeah.
Well, but you also have to ask the question of why. Why do this?
Right.
So why would Best Western do this? And hopefully someone there is thinking this through. So first of all, Best Western has a bit of a problem that they have a lot of properties, and those properties, it's hard to differentiate, them from some of the other brands that are fighting for that space. It's actually a really, really aggressive space right now in the industry. And so, like, if I were to answer why, like, if I was Best Western and someone pulled the trigger to make that investment, the first place I'd put it is any of their social advertising. I'd use that as the medium. Why? Because I look at behavior, and behavior says that, okay, when you're looking at a series of patterns and it's very similar, and then all of a sudden you see the break of, oh, when I moved my device, this image moved with it, the amount of people who will take a peek at it, like, so when you're talking really top of funnel, like, they're not coming and looking at it because you're Best Western, they're coming and looking at it because you were different, and then what's the experience from there? And that's the thing that I think a lot of people, like, really forget. It's not about 360 video, it's what are you going to drive them to?
Right.
And then what kind of funnel are you going to put them in? Like, and what is the funnel to put them in? Like, those are the things to focus on, not whether or not to do it. It's whether or not you're going to commit to that form of, wherever they would be at the funnel at the point that is what speaks to them. how are you going to drive them through the rest of the journey to the ultimate conversion?
It's like when you do a survey.
Well,
if you get the answer, what are you going to do with it? If you're going to ask the question and you get the answer, what are you going to do with the answer? And if you're not going to do anything with the answer, why ask the question? Same thing with the video. It's like, if you're going to do the video, are you doing it just because you're going to do it differently, or are you really doing it as a product that's going to be used for what you intended its development for? And then, fortunately, that's where they're falling down.
Here's the other thing, especially with 360, and Jeremiah says the fun is the funnel, which I agree. If you only put out the initial piece and you don't have a funnel behind it, the only thing you'll learn from it are vanity metrics.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting thing, if you get a chance to go to the site and after the call,
I'll go check it out. Yeah.
You know, they have these kind of cool videos, and they have this really bad, like, 1970s type intro over it. Best Westerns are the most beautiful hotels. And,
that's ownership getting in the way of this stuff. It's like they want their picture of the porte-cochere somehow in the video. It's like, no, leave it alone.
Here's the other thing I'll say to you too. It's like, you should only be thinking about those things if you feel like the things that you do currently do, you do incredibly well.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's one of the easiest ways, like on shiny object syndrome. So if you're thinking, should we do 360 video? The first thing I'll ask you is, do you feel like you do video well?
Right.
Yeah.
And if you don't do video, okay, how's your
Maybe
imagery?
It would be more advantageous to get your staff engaged.
These are the steps. Perfect things before you go to the more elaborate versions of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I'd add to that also perfect really the persona-based funnels, right? Especially for resort, where you can really look at it and say, we are looking at whatever. Yeah, if you're looking at, I mentioned honeymoon. We're looking at honeymooners, or maybe it's vow renewals. You know, maybe it's destination weddings. I mean, you can break this down really, really finitely, or especially people traveling with children. Because the thing that drives me crazy is somebody goes and does a video, and it's just a mishmash. You go, yeah, here's whatever the buddies from college, and here's the meeting space, and here's and you're just sitting there going,
buckshot approach.
Yeah, but
this video will work because it'll speak to everyone.
You have three.
It turns off everybody.
You have
Again,
three.
If you get very finite on that, and I mean, ultimately, I think with a 360 video, all of a sudden you do some cool little wedding on the beach on a 360, and they were on the destination wedding page, and they did this. All of a sudden, that stuff becomes really powerful because I think Lauren's example of the VR thing with the cardboard was because they knew these people were on the cusp. They keep going there, and they aren't pulling the trigger because it's a big decision, and what can you do? But that's because they had the data on saying, this is a finite group. We know who these guys are. What can we do to push them over the goal line?
And I think you can start simplistically just in how you do targeted ads to segments. So make sure there are experiences that speak to the ad.
Right.
Yeah.
And not just, a little bit. Like, go deep. Take the content that they're going to navigate to, and make sure that the theme of whatever you know about them because of the first thing they did to convert follows through to that. Mm-hmm. Because then you'll learn more about that segment. So sometimes the best way to get good data is to start by kind of guessing on what you're going to get out the other end and building to that, and then test and measure, and then adjust, and then test and measure and adjust. Like, you're never done. Right. Before you go into like super sophisticated 360 video, like, I'd rather see hotels that want to play with 360 video do it in the least financially impactful way possible, which is there someone on your staff who's interested in it? Great. Go have them take one and put it on YouTube and play with promoting it to see what it does.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, because you have three challenges to the process. One is that you're in a density of market, and this is, I'm just reciting from my brief experience with hotel properties they're near you, and then also in Sydney, is that you have to create distinction to whom you are, which I'm preaching to the choir about saying it, but so empowering your staff to give unique experiences or give a unique context to what is maybe not known in market compared to your competitors who are spewing out the same type of content. And that gets translated over into your social strategies that instead of going over and reciting the same regurgitated kind of content that everybody else is in market, you start defining it according to what Robert's saying, individual topics like soft adventure, off the beaten path, culinary, renewing of vows or weddings or so forth. You start slicing those up, and you create long tail storylines in social that will coincidentally apex in discussion at the time that you know that that market segment is the most interested in your market. But it's a long seed. It's not something that you just decide to start springing content out in market because you've already lost them high in the funnel. They're not engaged with you on those platforms at that time sequence. So you have to seed that conversation to draw them into you, where they start isolating their perspective of their engagement to your market from your location, so that even if the price is a variant, or even if there's a reason to think of another property, having to reconstruct that perception is more arduous than just to accept the changes and know that they still want to stay with you.
And fully commit to see what it teaches you. Man, when I say fully commit, like even when they get into your booking engine, like don't show them rates that families don't book if they're family segment. You know, like really fine tune it, because you can get rid of a lot of the paths that create noise in your data.
And I'm a big fan in the booking engine. And again, a lot of booking engines don't enable this, but yeah, show them pictures of families in that room. Where it's quad occupancy. If that's what they're looking. That's great stuff, because they can start picturing themselves.
Yeah, not just glam pictures.
The one. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead.
Oh no.
I was saying
the right thing. You're supposed to speak over us.
Yeah, you just talk over us. It's all good.
The one thread that that I hear through the whole conversation today is personalization, and the need to focus on that, and we're working on that, but it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. Wait. It's hard when you try to drink the ocean. Start where you know you can start. There are people who make it to you where you already know why they're coming to you. Start there. And that can be static personalization, where like this is the experience that newlyweds and weddings and nuptial based advertising drives to. And this is where, people who clicked on an ad with family in it, this is where they drive through. And just start by having all the content flow and fit to that. And even then you go like a step further, like, okay, so for family, let's segment older kids, younger kids.
Right.
Now let's branch them. And then it's like, oh, wow, then start doing cross tracking to see that, hey, these people who ended up here were also here. And that's how you can start designing behavioral-based personalization, where based on steps they take, you take what you learn and you start adjusting. Like that's the thing where like I think most people are trying to go, but you can start super duper simple, which is entry point. Start with that. That gives you a theme, and then that also sharpens your advertising to be more focused.
Yeah, and that is something we do. We try to land people on relevant pages, whether it be a special or, like you said, a family or something like that. But going to that next level of identifying, number one, identifying, whether it be a persona or any sort of information you have about the person, and then to dynamically serve them up the right content is a whole, technology issue. It's a tracking issue.
It's a content issue.
Hey, Go Bronchies, how are you?
And we're moving.
Thanks for joining the show. We have Dan Waxman from Outrigger Hotel
personalization aspect to it
in Hawaii. He's joining us very early in this morning.
And as you said, we're starting really small. We're making sure that people coming in from Australia are not getting local Hawaii ads, right? So simple. Right?
Yeah, like show pictures of utes parked in your parking lots.
So just instead of the beach, we have a picture of a bottle of beer.
Exactly.
We'll start with geo, and then we'll get down to personas. We'll get down to their click path and all those things. But I still stick with my
that makes for a long day. Go for hockey.
It is hard.
We're working on it though.
So what's your CMS?
We use Sitecore.
Okay.
Which is fairly robust CMS, and we use when we talk about the booking engine, I'd love to do some more stuff in there, but as a small company, we used to have our own booking engine. There's all sorts of issues with having your own booking engine. Not the least of which is the inability to keep up with all of the changes, little things like mobile and things like that. But when you go to a third party, you're sort of handcuffed a little bit in that you can only do what they can do, and you can try to push them to get on the development calendar and all that. But we work with Synexus, who we like, and it's a solid booking engine. but there's tons of stuff. We're still seeing 60% of our traffic coming in, and only this much actually converting there. Why? It's a pain in the ass to fill out a form.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to do that.
Yeah.
Why can't you use the fingerprint to put in all your information? And I guarantee you it would go through the roof. If that was my booking engine, that would be the first thing I'd be working on.
Just Dan, so we have Jeremiah that's they added a question. What different service perks do you add to different travel segments, if any? And then I have a few people that have a couple questions off of Periscope. We'll get to after Jeremiah's, then I guess. And I'll remind you too is that your half hour of us attacking you is now turned into an hour. You're off the hook. Yeah, we don't want to drag it in. But so anyway, if you want to, Jeremiah's question: what different service perks do you add to different travel segments, if any?
I think on the consumer side, it's very limited, except maybe potentially discounts for certain segments, within our loyalty program. We do a lot of promo code driven campaigns to our database of past stayers and things like that. We do on sort of, we talked about the hidden loyalty program. We do a surprise and delight program where we try to, ferret out which is not easy because we don't have a robust database at the moment. Good customers or customers who are high up in the social food chain and do nice things for them. Probably there's a huge opportunity in the consumer space to do more of that. Certainly in the trade space, we do lots of that. For our preferred travel agents, there's all sorts of things that we would give their guests when they check in, as well as on the wholesale side. There's all sorts of different things that are baked into agreements with them, groups and things like that we'll do different things, everything from breakfast inclusions to I can't think of any other off the top of my head, to nice stuff in their room, baskets and things like that.
Two things I want before I forget. Two things I want to just offer, and then I have a question from a woman in Curacao, Marie, which is nice. Was Facebook dynamic ads for travel? Have you messed with that? And have you worked in any of the, and I don't mean to keep it to strictly social, but since the demographic profiling is so cool with it, doing lead ads with Facebook, because it answers a couple of your questions. One, with lead ads, you don't have to fill in the fields. Boom, they just hit a button. I'm interested. Give me more information, especially in the discovery phase where you can send them a whole mess of why you want to come to Hawaii kind of stuff and stay with you. So you can do aspirational lead ad gen on it. And then the Facebook dynamic ads, of course, being able to trigger outside of the hub markets for airlines and so forth. And that's where Maria's question is coming from. How do you isolate? It allows you to isolate interest categories in feeder markets to the hubs that get to you. And so I didn't know if you've been messing with those. Have you been messing with either of those at all, or?
We haven't done the lead gen at all. We're starting to test the dynamic, but sort of way too early for us to determine. I know as a user, that stuff is very powerful. So my assumption is that there are other people like me out there. So I am excited about that, and just getting it launched is what we're working on right now.
Okay, Marie from. Okay, go ahead, Robert.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was saying so. Marie
do the Curacao ones.
Oh, okay, sorry.
To the new Facebook features, which was one of the news items, but that's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We can jump to it too if you want. Marie's asking. She's trying to say it's great. I know where my flights are coming from. Being in Curacao, there's certain hubs, Miami. How do you have any techniques of how to determine where they fly into Miami before they get to me? She's asking in her context. I guess what she's asking is there a way that you can determine where people are flying into to fly to you to better target your marketing? Maria, I hope I did your question justice.
Absolutely. We get may not be weekly, but we get very regularly airline reports. Actually the Visitors and Conventions Bureau here is fantastic with supplying that level of data. We are, our economy is built around tourism. Actually, probably all of the destinations we operate in, our economies are built around tourism. So we are very careful to look at that data. Obviously, that helps us pinpoint where we want to focus on. But beyond that, we get geo data from the Convention and Visitors Bureaus, actually in all of our locations, that gives us a good idea of where our people are arriving from. Obviously, there's most of these.
Go for the other question for Dan at all.
I can convey it also. Even though they're coming from LA, they're potentially coming from all over the place. But we do try to nail down where where our customers are coming from. From Hawaii, it's amazing. West Coast is the lion's share of it. From the Pacific Northwest, California is the biggest. Canada has gone down. From Australia, we have lots. Although, the big one is from Sydney, but most of the people are from all over Australia who are coming into the destination. But when you look at a destination like Thailand, it's amazing. When I first asked to take a look at the geo report, it scared the crap out of me because not a single market had more than had double digits. You had 50 markets all at 2%. How the hell do you market? How do you market to something like that, right? So it is easier, I think, when you're in a fly-to market to determine where your people are coming from. But it's still a challenge, especially when it's fragmented, to get to that market.
I was, so we probably entered Hawaii as a company like 2 years ago, and we did it kind of cautiously because we weren't sure what influence would do in such a commitment of a trip, and we were shocked by the booking window, how short it can be for Hawaii. Like, just going into it, knowing Hawaii because of previous things I did, I always kind of looked at it and said, man, this is kind of a big trip. Like, this isn't, this is like an Orlando type trip, a Vegas type trip. There are people who spend a very long time thinking about this, but I was surprised by how many people can be just swayed, like, come now. That kind of shocked me. As we grew out in Hawaii, we saw it consistently. It wasn't just with the initial customer. We saw it continually. That was something that really surprised me because I always thought Hawaii was a much bigger decision than, going to, like, San Francisco or, it's like...
That's maybe for LA, San Francisco, so, just those gateways, gateway cities. Probably, maybe not people who have to go connect in. Well, East Coast and that sort of thing, right?
It just surprised me, the volume of people that have made the decision because of someone else so quickly. Like, I figured we'd see a lot more in the long tail, but we're actually seeing more in the medium side of decision path to, like, our statistics, and that's what surprised me because I figured with Hawaii we were going to skew even further to long tail than what we normally do for customers, and I'm pretty surprised that it wasn't as big of a shift as, like, I was actually thinking our aggregate shift of time from our engagement to decision would skew by months, where it was literally like weeks, and that really surprised me about what you can do with Hawaii.
Yeah, I'm from New York, so the idea of Hawaii in my mind is a long trip. But
right.
To Robert's point, from a West Coast perspective, this is their Puerto Rico, this is their Caribbean. It's not if they get a good deal, they may fly out here. And it's, strangely enough, the Japan market as well, has become so mature here that, if they get a good deal, they may pop on a plane and swing over here, believe it or not, for a weekend,
Yeah.
It definitely has changed over the years.
And tour operators have been all over that for a long time because they know the price point at X, whatever it is, $6.99 or $7.99, whatever that number is. They know if it's $3 higher, doesn't happen. But boom, this time, this booking window, and it turns on. Yeah, it's amazing. Same Mexico from Texas, even in the summer. Yeah, Houston down, just incredible. Here's an offer, people getting the heck out, and not necessarily getting out of the heat.
So they're not escaping the country. They're reverse migration.
Exactly. Exactly.
Being mindful of the time, because we first off sincerely appreciate the time.
Absolutely.
And I mean, this has been awesome, dude. Really, it's been fun talking with you, seeing you, knowing that we're going to see you again next week. Sans the beard, but still nice to see you with the beard and all. But don't want to eat up too much of your time by just you being polite to us. Do you have a little bit more time to hang with us, or because we can keep talking about you all day long because there's so much fun things to talk about for it. We can throw in other stuff if you want to get off the hot seat a little bit, and we can throw in some news topics for it, or you want to go over and start your day, which you've already started kind of early. We know the
Just
refrigerator
remember-
behind you is restocked, though. We do know that the refrigerator is restocked behind you because we watched her put in a whole mess of stuff. So we know that you are good to go.
That's the breakfast. Maybe I'll take a walk out to Lanai and give you a view of the background.
There we go.
But no, if you'd like to stay with us, please.
What time do you guys usually finish?
Oh,
Is it
that'd be awesome.
another 10 minutes?
Awesome.
Whenever most of us have appointments and just say, hey, we got to end.
On average, we run for about 2 hours. To give you an idea, we're already an hour 15. Just poof,
At one
there it goes.
point, one of the feeds cuts off at 2 hours, so we try to.
Yeah, we try to keep it under 2 because
so we don't have double feeds.
because what happens is this is recorded, so after 2 hours it splits into another recording, and which makes me have to splice them together, which sucks. So I try to keep it under 2 hours.
Well, I'd love to wake up early and join you guys again in the near future. I probably should get in my car and head over to the office about now, but it really was fun. So thanks for. I appreciate you guys having me.
Dan,
we appreciate it.
awesome to be here. I'd say if people want to find out where you are, but being in Hawaii, you already have enough people that already want to know where you are, and if you give them your email, they're probably going to want to know even more who you are. So you don't have to give anybody any information about how to get in contact with you, but if they would like to stay at the resorts, what would be the best way for them to come to the resorts?
Outrigger.com, and you can find me on LinkedIn. If anybody wants to link into me, feel free to shoot me an invite.
A couple people, one on Periscope, Gopher Jockey, who hangs with us on every one of the show. He says, thank you so much for taking the time. He is going to go look because he's thinking about going to Hawaii, so who knows? Maybe that was worth one booking. But
we have turned into a conversion engine on this show.
and for Facebook, let's see if we have any other residual questions. Maria says, thank you. Great information. Best of luck. Yeah, okay. So everybody's saying thank you.
Yeah.
So
Thank you. Very
Cheers, guys.
much.
Thanks very much.
thank you, Dan. Thank you so very much for the time. Very cool. That was.
And I was going to tell Dan that even though he leaves, we're still going to keep talking about him. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You may want to watch the recording later.
Yeah.
Now comes the colored commentary.
Yeah. Now we can talk. Dan Waxman, with beard or without beard? I like the beard. I think you should keep it. I don't know.
I don't know. We'll see next week if he takes it off. You know, we can, maybe that's a good fodder for some of the video we do next week.
Gopher is saying that this is the post game show.
This beard minute.
Yeah, this is the post game show according to Gopher Periscope. Oh man, hey, I sent over a whole pile of articles.
Yep, and I have time for absolutely none of it because I have to run.
I lose Dan, and then boom, there goes Ed.
Well, it's 1 o'clock. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's right. We're 5 minutes up to it. I mean that. But how much fun was that?
Ed is going to try to time his call to Dan to introduce Flip 2 as soon as he gets into the office. So.
No, Dan knows Flip 2 because Dan stayed at one of his competitor hotels and shared pre-arrival and took part in the post-day advocacy as well.
I figured that Ed was being conservative for a reason because normally with some of the topics we were talking about, you were such a natural. I wasn't even going to do a punt.
But it's not fair because if I talk about it, then I'm talking about it from like my lens. So I didn't want. First of all, I don't want hotels to feel like when they come on here, you're going to get a sale about.
No, I know you're being very nice about that, but I was going to tee it up for you actually because it was just. What are your thoughts on pre-arrival? Oh, I actually could question you before you went if you get the chance. Gopher's asking, what are your thoughts on pre-arrival? If you don't mind me asking. Gopher, what exactly about pre-arrival? Or Ed, do you just want to take it as a pre-arrival? What's important about pre-arrival?
So first of all, pre-arrival communications, I think, are a huge opportunity to solve just a lot of big, heavy problems. So first of all, anything you currently are trying to get done by having your front desk ask for it, you should see if you can move that into pre-arrival communications. You will get a much higher take rate. So that's any form of upsell, awareness of things on site.
Making anything actionable after the fact. Actionable. Capturing the data.
Right. Because that's the other thing, too, is you can put things on pre-arrival to actually track the person who clicks on it. And if you're sophisticated enough, you can tie that back to their record and know that they're interested in these types of things. But first and foremost, the easiest reason to have a pre-arrival communication or a series of pre-arrival communications, it substantially cuts down no-shows.
Good point.
By a lot. So if for no other reason, having a communication that reminds them they have a reservation coming up will cut on your no-shows.
And all the fights I'm trying to get out of the guarantee and all those calls to accounting and all that problem. And the other one is ask why they're coming, please.
Yep.
If you don't do it in the booking process on that, just say, hey, is there anything? Why are you here? Simple sort of stuff. And if you get those little tidbits, that's great. You can add it at the front desk if the front desk knows it, and you can train it into the process. You go, hey, if you're here with your family, here's some great things. There's a place down here that's really fun, and and again, we didn't cover it with Dan, but it's interesting because he has, I don't know, at least a half dozen properties in Honolulu, probably maybe 10, somewhere between maybe 6 and 10, and probably at least 5 in Maui. You can really start doing some interesting things and also investing in some content. Like, here's Hanauma Bay, and maybe you start doing 360s with Hanauma Bay or the North Shore, all these places where you can go where you kind of get a little bit out of town and not just you're on the beach there and locked into the hotel and all that sort of, which Outrigger doesn't really do a lot of that. I mean, they certainly promote a lot of stuff that they have and their properties, but all the different things you can do, and the Pearl Harbor War Memorial, which people love. But again, you don't want to pitch that to everybody. If you can figure out what's going on, and this is the right persona for it, boom, here's a thing that will make just a great vacation. So.
So pre-arrival communications, people are going to open them because
they're coming.
It's a continuance of your reservation. Of your booking. Right?
It goes right on top of the pile.
So first and foremost, if that's the primary reason of the communication, you can keep it very transactional in nature, which will get you higher open rates, things like that. So
Ed, you just made a really, really excellent point. Not that you don't make excellent points, but that's a really excellent point. If I were to look at any of the emails,
made one.
Hallelujah!
This is one of those nuggets of gold. Okay, first off, you have an Evan on Periscope. He's saying yes and great, and he says he's so inconsistent, but about pre-arrival stuff. But you just made a really amazing point that I didn't really think about until you just said it that way. Of all the communications that I'm going to have with a guest, that is the highest opportunity of guaranteed engagement that I have. Because just like I'm waiting for a check from somebody, I'm going to open up every email that they send me, or not email, but mail that they owe me, because I'm waiting for that check. Same too with the pre-arrival. I'm coming there. So if you're going to send me something, maybe it's a benefit or a bonus or a happy thought or whatever, I'm going to at least open it up. That's a great point.
Yeah. And you look at organizations like, Nor1 has made a business out of this to really
for upsell,
and in terms of selling upsells and things like that. I mean, if you can see an organization like that has made a fairly substantial business about doing that, well, there's obviously something there if you're doing it on your own. So, and it's not just upsells; it's just how do you increase it? How do you get more information on these guys? And if they do start clicking on different things and experiences, boy, those are all signals for future, here's cool stuff you might like, or how to make things better, and how to, again, it's all fulfillment of getting the staff tied into it and getting,
I know you have to run, but we're the dynamic trio for next week for the HSMEI Digital Marketing Conference. Between the three of us, we're going to be doing...
it's the dressiest you will see us.
It'll be the dressiest you see us, really. We're going to be doing live coverage of the conference. I'll start putting up posts on all the platforms of when we're going to be doing exactly what times. I figure right now we're going to have 4 live breaks out of the course of the day. More if we get more engagement, we'll just fire up the camera and go live and leave it at that, barring any Wi-Fi connection issues and so forth. So for everybody that's not familiar with what we're talking about, really, is next week is the Adrian Awards on Tuesday evening in the Marriott Marquis in New York City. Big gala about the best of the best in the industry getting their awards. Hopefully we'll have a little coverage of that as well. But our big forte will be the live coverage outside of the meeting room or the conference room as we pull people off stage and recap what they just presented on stage, plus feedback from those that listened to the presentations. So we're going to have some really cool stuff for it. So keep an eye out for all of these channels that you're finding us on. It will be only on Facebook Live that I'm going to be focusing on, because we won't be able to multicast. I don't think there's bandwidth even for one. It's our fingers crossed. 2, they would require a studio of computers here for me to do that. So Facebook, we're going to do it on our super cool little nifty computer here, or camera here.
Do Do you have someone coming to hold it?
No, I got a nice little monopod with a little tripod.
So now you have something to put it on, because at high tech you had to have someone hold it.
Yeah, I know. I got smarter since then. Well, no, not smarter. I've gotten reactionary. I've reacted to the issue.
You've reacted well.
So yes, I have that stuff for because the other cameras just didn't flat out work, but this one will work. So anyway, for Mr. Ed, if anybody wants to reach out to you for what you do or what Flip2 does, where's the best way for them to find you?
To find out more about Flip2, go to www.flip.to. And to find out more about me, you can find me on pretty much any social media under my name, Edward St. Ange.
And if you want to know anything about Star Wars, anything about how to enjoy Star Wars in Orlando especially, Mr. Ed is the man.
You want to know anything about traveling with kids in general?
That's right. Mr. Ed's the man. Yeah, very true.
Yes.
Very true.
So anyways, gentlemen, thank you. I will see you next week.
See you
Travel
next week.
safe. Let's hope for a warm week like it's supposed to be.
I was going to check the weather. Is it supposed to be warm next week?
Which will still be cold for me, but it will be warm.
Yeah, that's all good.
Looks like it's be okay. I think Thursday it starts to rain. So.
I'm leaving Thursday, so who cares?
Yeah.
I'm staying through Saturday, so.
Things don't exist when I'm not there. So,
that's right. Until the window opens. All right, Mr. Ed, thank you very much. We'll see you
have a
on
good one.
Tuesday. Take care and thank you for the time. Robert, we can decide to just take the whole news list, or was there one that just so stood out that you just feel compelled that if we don't talk about it this week, it'll be old news next week?
I thought a couple of them. The Facebook features, the events feature, and the recommendations. The recommendations I have seen used now on a couple posts, and I actually used it myself, where someone's going, I believe, to the conference. They're looking for a New York, cheap hotel. They're saying they're staying at a conference at the Marriott Marquis. They didn't say their week, but they are in the hotel industry, so I kind of assumed that. And I gave them, you plugged in 3 recommendations, and there you go, boom, links right off to their Facebook pages. I've got to think at some point Facebook turns that into some sort of monetization where it's I don't know if you pay for the click to go to your page, maybe or maybe not, but then you can wind up booking off of that page, like that. But I've got to think that's going to be an area where hotels that have the booking engines integrated with their Facebook pages, that could be an interesting, very interesting aspect. And again, I don't know. I think right now it's kind of a freebie type thing. So interesting.
Go for Rockies.
Which I think will get monetized at some point. So it's kind of like Instagram. When organic was really good on Facebook, when organic stuff was really good. Do it now before the toll gate gets installed. The
couple of ones I've noticed, it was like with the Cody article, and for everyone that all the show notes, the links we're about to talk to you about, or the topics, will be on the show notes at hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live is where you'll see the show, and the link that goes to the particular post. The particular post will be hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live show /80, which is the show number 80, for the particulars of these links. I was noticing,
and I try to put the links into the comments, so they will be seen
thank
there.
you so much. I appreciate it, because I'm talking on the other side of these things. I like Cody's article. Cody, for anyone that's not familiar with it, is a meta search platform. They're the great dashboard interface for you to use meta search for your hotels. Unfortunately, their scalability doesn't allow it for one-off hotels or small clusters of hotels. They still are operating in the high-capacity space, enterprise-level stuff. But they're a huge, great resource for information, and they do a great blog if you're not keeping up with them. I highly recommend Cody is koddi.com. And they had an interesting article on features disparity between Google Hotel Search, between mobile and desktop, and whether you were searching for a hotel as to whether or not it was giving you recommendations and pricing, or whether it was giving you trending. And so some things are being omitted one to the other, and I don't want to rush through it, but because I would like to bring it back in another conversation when we get out the team together, maybe at the end of next week or the week after, because it does have an impact. These little nudges that Google does and little nudges that Facebook does and so forth may seem innocuous at the time, like, oh, well, that's just a neat little new feature. But just like we talked about last week, the ramifications of trending rates for hotels in local mobile search is scary, because it then means that now in your hand, at that moment of those micro moments, as Google describes it, there's a new influencer as to what decision you're making. If you're looking and you like the hotel and you think the rate is reasonable and everything's fine and the location's good, and then you scroll down and see, wait a minute, it's at its peak price right now. Screw it.
Right.
That could be just as painful as going to TripAdvisor and reading that somebody thinks it's the most disastrous hotel in the world. So
Yeah.
these little nudges can create profound impacts as to what really happens. So again, the article from Cody's pretty good.
And I've been doing a bit of work on Google stuff. It's interesting. There are lots of little experiments going on. They have been looking at little bar charts of pricing trends and things like that. But they'll also come up with something that says this is one of the top 10% of the hotel. Like this hotel is in the top 10% in terms of guest ratings and little things like that. So they're experimenting around with this little kind of messaging to kind of trigger, different things. So it's an interesting. Interesting. But the one thing though that is still heinously lacking, just to pick on Google for a second, is they've taken the same approach that Priceline has when they do, not in Booking.com, but I think it's kind of it's the old GDS method of booking, where when the GDSs started, they had single and double occupancy, and that was it. And there was only a price for a third person in the room, and it didn't really work well for kids and that sort of thing. The kids stay free. It was really, really kludgy, and it still, unfortunately, is largely in the GDSs. But Google doesn't have a party size, and it just drives me crazy because when I'm searching for a hotel, and like if I'm traveling with my daughter, we need two beds. So at least we don't want to be in a king or in a single double bed or something like that. And all of a sudden, the pricing can change, the room types can change, all that really super relevant content is gone, and you wind up having this awful experience of having to drill down into the hotel, look at the available rooms, see if that's good, come back, and you want to kill yourself. I mean, it's like literally moving back in time 15 years. And it's always been amazing that Priceline has never done that, especially on their express deals and things like that. And that Google's doing that. It's a disservice to the traveler.
Yeah.
And it's just
it's so funny you make that. You make an excellent point with that because you and I travel differently. I don't have children at that age to worry about traveling with. So for me, I've never noticed the inconvenience. And as you're talking about it, I'm sitting there going, why would they not have done that? That makes such brilliant sense.
Google Express deals or name your own price. That whole segment has never confirmed anything more, and it's in very small type. 2 people in the room, double occupancy. That's it. So we learned that early on booking something and going, what the hell? Why did we get this? Because the hotel's picking the room. You're like, yeah, but we have 3 people. Oh, you never asked. It's like, and even if you put in the comments, that's nothing, right? It doesn't get seen. It isn't, a viable field. Never makes it to the hotel most of the time, and it's garbage. So we wind up Priceline loses a ton of business from us because I have 5 current hotel booking, and I think I've been very outspoken on this topic, and I apologize, hoteliers, for this, but I think I have 5 standing hotel bookings that I over the next 45 days I'm paying my own dime on. They are all through Hotwire, every single one. Because I got really stupidly low rates that are lower than what I could have booked directly, and it's amazing. So anyway, and I really look at a lot of these situations. I think a lot of more of the informed bookers are now starting to book something on Booking.com, lock in a price, and that's now your max sort of thing, and you can cancel it, all the way up to day before arrival, something like that. And then you can go in and either use triggers that are used by some of the OTAs, things like that, to do price alerts or whatever, or you start going and pinging and hitting these these opaque sites. And if you do that, you get rates which are stupidly low based on the lack of discipline by the hotel revenue managers.
No, we brought that up a few times before,
Or intentional strategy. And actually, I think a good example was I think you booked the row, right? Which I think when you booked it, the retail price was $99. I think you got I think what happened. Ed gave you an insider deal tip type thing, right?
They gave me this,
For
but there's still a resort fee I got to contest. They're still trying to charge $25 a day for a resort fee, and I'm like,
of course they are. That's their money. No. That's it. That's how they make their money. It's $25, and that's why it's going to. Well, I don't know. With the new administration, this may not take place. We'll have to see.
Yeah,
but the Federal Trade Commission was all over this, going, "You've got to stop this." It's
we'll see.
wrong.
We'll see how well the world changes with all the things going on. You're right.
But what I was going to say is the price at the row is, I think right now for next week is $80. That's their retail price. That's not the deal. That's it.
Isn't that something?
And those guys, Highgate is driving the competition nuts in New York because they're bringing it down. They're filling the property. They're pricing to fill, right?
Heads and
Which
beds.
is the same way Ryu drives all the all-inclusive guys nuts in Mexico and the Caribbean. They price it to fill. They know how they do it, and boom.
It is so true. I mean, it's funny. Due to the old, if anybody wants to empathize what the revenue manager's life is like, imagine that you're doing a garage sale and you're trying to sell an item, and you bought it for $50. You're trying to sell it for $50. It's used, but you bought it for $50. You're trying to get your money back. Somebody walks up and they say, how much is this? You say $50, and they look and they show you on Amazon. It's $20 on Amazon. And it's $50 new, and it's used here, and it's $15 if I want to go to the egg. Now, how much is it again? And the revenue manager is going to still stand there. This is the dumb man. This is not dumb. These are the revenue managers that try to think that their bluff is actually going to work. Stay with the lie kind of thing. Well, it's $50. Well, good. Then you can keep it. And next thing you know, it's perishable and it's gone. So these revenue managers, and then on the other part of it is they don't know what they have. It's a $50 item, and they're selling it for $1.
Or
and then
the revenue manager has it, and it's available for a lower price through another channel that's somehow getting into TripAdvisor or something.
Well,
some meta-search platform. You're like, wait a second, how'd that wind?
So I was in Shanghai, and I wanted this little souvenir trinket, okay, and they're booths side by side, and I was in obviously a touristy section. Service, doing stuff. And the guys, I'm haggling. It's like, no, I'm only going to pay this. I'm going to pay this. But he's like, oh, yeah, fine. He walks, goes to walk away. I'm like, fine. I got to put it back down. The booth right next to him, which has the same shit, goes over and says, I'll sell it to you for that. And the guy looks at him and they start lighting up on each other in Chinese. And I'm like, hey, the dude wanted to sell. You didn't want to sell. He's willing to take what I'm offering. You lost.
That's right.
And I bought it right in front of him.
He's got a qualified lead. Yep.
Punching, yep. Okay, so a few other quick touch points on some stuff, which is kind of fun. Social side of things, since we do live Periscope. Live Periscope is now in what is Twitter's Explorer tab. Now, for those who are not big Twitter people and people who are not big Periscope, Periscope is owned by Twitter, so that you know. Periscope, with their live presentations, they just now turned it where you can do it off a desktop, which is what we do now. It used to be you can only do it off of mobile, and it was kind of a float out there on their own, and they got destroyed and pretty much eaten up. They destroyed Meerkat, but then they never really completed the baked process for Periscope, and it kind of floundered as a platform that people were using. Snapchat ate them up and everything else. Well, then Twitter finally did the right thing and incorporated them into their Twitter stream and called it Twitter Live, even though it's still Periscope, because if you try to do Twitter Live, and if you don't have a Periscope account or app, you actually have to get one and load it. And now Twitter has increased Periscope's profile by adding them into the Explorer tab. And the Explorer tab is Twitter's way of doing a news feed. It's not just trending stuff. It's things that are tailored to what you're following, who's following you. It's kind of like realizing that Facebook's got a great model here, so maybe we should do it since we're the low end on the totem pole now. And so they've included their live broadcast in the Explorer tab, which makes it interesting because I have seen this flux in audience in Periscope today that kind of strange in that sense. Where people come in and they leave kind of stuff. So I think there's an exposure value to it. Twitter realizes, as Zuckerberg has said, video is the future, period. So, I mean, his investment in Facebook Live and what they're doing, how they're amplifying it, how they're focusing it, I think Twitter's saying, rather than fight it, let's realize that there's smart people in the world with us. Let's do what they're doing too. Let's see.
Actually, they call them moments, right?
Yeah, moments.
They're moments.
So
yeah, and it's interesting. A lot of it is it's kind of trending. They have today, news, sports, entertainment, but it should be curated based on who you follow and things like that. So it's
I
it's
do want-
interesting. The challenge with Twitter though is their user growth and their engagement time is even though the president uses it as his favorite mode of
We're
communication.
not going to go political. We're not going to go political.
It's not. Well, no, I'm just saying from a
No.
pure-
I'm just saying. I'm
You
sitting there
would
because
think
I'm so frustrated with that concept. But yes.
Yeah. But again, if you figure the president's using this, well, all these people are going to be on it, but it's not. It doesn't really
No.
work that way. What's happening is those tweets are getting accumulated. They're getting thrown out somewhere else in other stories that people are reading either on the New York Times or Mashable or God knows where through some other media thing, and Twitter's not monetizing it, which is a real problem. They've got to really figure that out, or they're going to wind up on the
They're going to be eaten up by somebody.
Either getting acquired or in the boneyard.
Yeah. Well, maybe Russia will buy them and just use it. Just saying.
Same thing with Pinterest.
Yeah. Well, Pinterest. Pinterest
and
has been overtaken as well. Which there's an article about from Adweek that we threw in the list, and that was that. And this is for wedding planners and Smurf Market business people.
Oh yeah.
900 million wedding-related pins every year.
Yep.
The statistics in this article, which are really quite amazing, about how Pinterest is the first de facto platform that people go to plan their wedding before they're even asked to be married. They actually are going to Pinterest to explore what magic they want. So all of the things that the Knot have tried to accomplish, weddingplanner.com has tried to accomplish, of being the de facto core place to go, Pinterest has taken it from them. Pinterest is the place that they go to.
Outrigger, looking at honeymoons and destination weddings, things like that, should be
all over Pinterest. All over Pinterest. Absolutely, freaking. Plus, you can post videos on Pinterest, and Pinterest has some great profiling on their advertising campaign. So make sure when we see Dave next week.
Pinterest's problem is they aren't monetizing it, and actually they have some pretty amazing engagement, primarily for the demographics who use it heavily. But again, they don't have this big user growth spike and things like that, which their investors are really looking for. That's a problem. The third one is Snapchat, and boy, all of their user growth when basically Instagram knocked them off, with their little video snippets, their user growth flattened. And they're doing an IPO right now, but that could get.
Well, you see how much money they're losing?
I don't know if that. Oh,
Did you see the stats on that?
$500 million last year.
Yeah, they're good at spending other people's money. That's amazing. So they want to go IPO.
So, they could be the next Twitter, which not exactly a successful IPO.
No.
For the people who've hung on to it. So
anybody Anybody in particular? No. Beautiful. All right.
No.
Couple other point outs was, and this is an article I do want to bring up with the guys again next week if we can get everybody together. Let's first off remind us that we want to tell Dan about Pinterest next week. As a courtesy to him about his wedding stuff, because he did ask about weddings.
Hey, no, we don't. He needs to watch the full thing. And
okay, all right. Now the article I want to make sure we bring up next week because it's a great article. And that came from Skift, and I know it's not the article itself, it is the topic and what they point out. And it's hotel revenue managers say they want a revolution. Yeah. I have argued this. Revenue managers, we need to change. We need this. We need this. But then they sit back and don't change. They don't. Right. They want all this. They're told that they want all this. They tell everybody they want these things. But when you talk to revenue managers as they are now, the last thing they want is change. What they want is better what they're doing, but they don't want to be the ones that necessarily do it. And I'm being critical about this. There are some that are really taking this to heart and doing something fantastic with it. And I do speak on the Rocket Circuit, which, by the way, is coming up in March for New York, St. Louis, and Baltimore. I think are the first three that I'm going to. And then in April, I'm going to be joining San Diego, Orange County, and Hawaii. So I might see Dan by then. Jeremiah's over there. Like San Diego, will be coming up. And in there, it's revenue managers that come in. It's a revenue optimization, continued education training. And so I'm talking about the advocacy of digital marketing with revenue management. So part of my discussion is literally hinging on being able to point to this article and say, guys, a year ago you said you wanted all these things to happen. And it's a year later and you've done nothing to make them happen. It's not that they still don't need to happen. It's just you haven't done anything to make them happen. So I definitely want to bring that article up next week when we have the guys on, because I think that's going to be a nice little fuel on the fire. Director of Demand Generation. Thanks. Revenue Manager, Director of Demand Generation. Absolutely right, Jeremiah. What other?
Oh,
Did you
and
see any
that,
other articles that
actually,
popped in?
a couple of the other articles. Amazon Chime, I think, is very interesting,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically their Skype killer. So that's going to be, free online meetings.
Yeah.
That will be very interesting to see how they do the whole video conferencing thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
No, I'm
we'll
with you
see
on.
if that's a shot at Microsoft or what their plans are in that in their world domination. And that was very interesting. Dan's comment about Hawaii, the Amazon Prime works. Let me tell you, that's
Wow. Can you
that's
imagine having
huge
Amazon
because,
Prime when you if you lived out in those environments? That's a world. That's a game. That's a life changer. Because
but just think of their logistics and analytics. They know what people want. They have buying patterns. They've got all this stuff, and then they can, load up airplanes and move it. And then again, Amazon's thing, I really believe is they, it's like watch out FedEx and UPS, and maybe not the U.S. Postal Service because I think Amazon actually supports a lot of what they do. That's a nice thing for them to use. But boy, what they're doing right now is they are going to do with basically what they've done with Amazon Web Services, right? Where they have all these massive servers and they lease out the space, right?
Yeah.
They go, hey, you can use our stuff.
You're-
They're going to be doing the same thing with their fulfillment center, and they already have.
You're in
where
Dallas. You're in
you
Dallas
can
with
use
me.
their fulfillment. Yeah.
You're in Dallas with me. Every Amazon package I get does not show up with a traditional carrier.
Right.
It's a person
No,
in the
they
car.
do it themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they do it. They do it themselves.
They're doing
And-
crowd sharing car. They're using the Uber Amazon link for something right now where they're having the drivers do Amazon
Absolutely.
deliveries, and so it's giving them a second
Well,
culture
if
for
it's
their
Prime-
drivers.
And if you're Prime now, yeah, that's a huge thing, and you get stuff within a couple
I ordered
hours.
stuff
but-
late last night, and the reason why Edison went crazy earlier in the show was because the ding dong at the door wasn't the squirrels, the ding dong at the door. It was my Amazon package,
Yeah.
and as soon as the ding dong happened,
Right.
my phone's popping. It's already delivered. I'm like, damn.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, and if you're Macy's now and you're trying to run your own stuff, just like Amazon Web Services, it's probably at some point going to be cheaper to use Amazon
Yeah.
than to try to do this stuff on your own and pay FedEx.
Well, look at what
and do all
Walmart's
this
trying to
stuff.
do. Walmart's trying to do the $35 up. Target already has $25
Yep.
up. But did
Yep.
you see that in Statistica, that article showing the revenue generation of malls? They're down at
Oh.
revenue levels of 2001,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's revenue levels, not adjusted for revenue a dollar recession. So
Oh,
they're
no.
way
No.
lower
And
than
you
that
look
even.
you look at the malls in Dallas, and I mean North Park
North
is
Park.
doing pretty well.
North Park
Valley
is a
View-
different. It's not a mall so much. It's a North Park shops, or I mean, they refuse to be called a mall.
Well, no, it's a mall.
It is,
And
yeah,
has been-
but
and it's always
having been
established
having been a
and-
client
yeah.
of mine before, if you called them mall, they would shoot you. They are not a mall. But look at the shops they have in their stuff. But anyway, that's another sidebar.
Oh
But
yeah, no, but they're doing very well. Valley View, almost deceased.
yeah,
Irving Mall, almost deceased. There used to be Prestonwood Mall that I think got leveled.
up here
taken
the
Galleria, nah,
Collins Mall
not
up here or whatever
great.
it is, it's gone. And now the only ones
Yep.
that seem to be doing well are the open air walkable quasi park,
Right. Yep.
engagement
Yeah,
ones.
that's
But all right, well, we went off into the retail world, but
Okay. Well, and one other thing, just while we're on totally tangential things, since you threw out the Skift article on the travel startups rethinking car rentals beyond sharing,
yeah,
there are two sharing ones though that I am really, really hot on. Number one is Turo, Turo.
heard of them.
Have you heard of Turo?
I've heard of Turo.
It's
Yes,
okay
I
if
have.
you have. Okay. Well, Turo is backed by Google Ventures, and it's basically Airbnb for cars. So you can go and say, "Hi, I've got an SUV, and it's this and that, and here's the price." And in many cases, they will set it up to deliver it. Some of them for free to the airport. Sometimes it's instant confirmation. It's kind of the very early days of Airbnb, but very interesting stuff. And again, user-generated content for reviews and getting the people who are reliable to the top and the guys who aren't to the bottom, and the people with the better reviews can charge more. Same exact dynamic, but with cars, which I think is a very interesting approach. And then the other one is BlaBlaCar, and BlaBlaCar hasn't come to the U.S. and really North America, but huge in France. I can't remember the millions.
Never heard of that one. Never heard of that one.
BlaBlaCar is, think of the the college ride board. So it's for city to city transportation. So I'm here, I'm in Dallas, and I want to go to New Orleans, sort of thing. Well, if somebody's driving there, you can ride with them.
Wow, that's a great idea.
Now, but with a really, really interesting twist, the drivers can't make money on it. So these guys have the algorithms that say, okay,
so just gas costs, basic gas money?
That's right, and they have a cost per mile that you're driving your Mercedes diesel, or I'm not sure I'm trying to think of whatever the biggest, you're driving your Escalade, right? Or something like that versus your smart car. They have, here are the different prices, and then this is it. That's what it's going to be, and the driver kind of pays their. The driver, I think, kind of pays their share, so it isn't like they profit from it. And they have no way to say, hey, I'm going to jack it up because there are a lot of people, I'm going to go the highest. But it's like, here's the price. So it makes it very affordable, very equitable, and
you know what they should
really,
make one
really
for
powerful.
Is car relocator, because there's a whole network of car relocation services, but nobody's monetized that to say, hey, like for instance, we wanted to go down to Florida, and we would drive a truck down if we would. Instead, we're doing a trailer because we need a vehicle to come back with. Where we'd much rather say, hey, does somebody need a car brought over to Dallas? Because we'll just go bring your car to Dallas on our way back. But there's no network to do that with. Not unless you get into these car retransportation services.
I think there might be some, but they're not widely.
Not like the blah blah. I love that idea. That's a great idea.
Now the best high school job of anyone I have ever heard of was a guy when I was in Seattle, and I don't know if it would really work anymore, but his dad was a United pilot, and he did a deal with the Porsche dealer in Seattle, or in Bellevue. And what he would do is he would fly back to New York for free, or wherever on the East Coast where they're getting the cars in from Germany off the ship, Baltimore or New York, wherever that was. He would fly back, and he would not only drive the car, but he would break it in. Right? So he wouldn't drive it over 50 miles an hour. Everything would be fine. Drives a really cool car across the country, and then gets paid by the person because they're saving money and the shipping.
That would be an awesome job. What's it? Movie the Rain Man almost. Hey, we're running to that point where we're going to click over, but real quick. So we're going to be together in New York. Now you're arriving Tuesday next week.
I arrive Tuesday morning-ish, depending on how long it takes.
I'm going to be recording the afternoon sessions for posterity, and then we'll get together sometime, I guess, towards before the Adrians. I don't know what access we have to the Adrians. We're all pressed now, so you get a press badge. I get a press badge.
Wait, for the Adrians?
Well, I'm hoping.
Maybe we should let's sign off and discuss this.
Yeah, I don't know. We're getting press passes. We'll figure all that out. But anyway, so for everyone, we're going to next week. We're going to the Adrians, which is HSMAI's gala. On Wednesday is the Digital Marketing Conference. If you're not able to attend this session, keep an eye out for us on Facebook at facebook.com/hospitality digital marketing. We will be doing live coverage of the show of the conference outside of the conference hall. So we'll be pulling people off stage, getting feedback from people that were in the audience and so forth. So we're going to do at least 4, if not more, live broadcasts during the course of the day there. We'll post that up on events so that you can see me join us or schedule for it as soon as I put that together in the next day or two before leaving. And then we're going to be doing our regular standard show on Friday anyway. But Robert and Ed and I are going to be kind of doing that in tag team fashion out there. So it should be a lot of fun. Mr. Robert, if people want to find you, where do they find you, sir?
rockjudah.com or at Robert K. Cole on all social media.
And for us, the show notes of all of this are at hospitalitydigital.com. digitalmarketing.com, /live. There you can find the links to all of the things we discussed today. And of course, a complete replay of this will be available when you get there. So with that, thank you everyone for being with us on Howza, which is the second to the last show. Next week will be our last show on Howza before we move to our new platform. For those of us on Periscope, for those of us on Facebook Live, and for those of us on YouTube Live, thank you all very, very much. And for YouTube Live, if you made a comment and I missed it, I sincerely apologize. Please give me your questions because we do the Monday Marketing Minute, where we do answer some questions we don't get to on the show. And if it's a great question, we'll definitely throw it in there to be answered to. And all that stuff can still be found on hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com. So with that, thank you to everyone. You all have a great day, and thank you thanks again for Dan when you play this back for having joined us. We had a great show with you. Take care. Bye, Mr. Robert.
Bye, Ron.
Okay, we're off the air there, and pardon me while I turn down the lights in Dallas and shut everything else off. Quickly there. My apologies for everyone that's still listening to us on all the other shows. It takes a little bit to power down everything. Bye, everyone on Facebook. Thank you so much for your time.
We really need Tim here to like sing the outro. You know,